Welcome to the Upshot Interview Series. This is episode number 17, and today we'll be joined by Ella Hansen. Ella is the reigning PDGA Rookie of the Year. She is also a back-to-back podium finisher on the Disc Golf Pro Tour after getting top 3 at both Jonesboro and the Dynamic Discs Open. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, joined by Josh Mansfield. Josh, this is a great interview. We talk all things, this is Ella's first year on tour. So I think it's very interesting to get the perspective of somebody not only who's relatively new to disc golf, but who is literally brand new to being on the road and doing the touring thing. I think it's also notable that she's having success while doing that.
Yeah, I remember we interviewed her around this time. I think it was just before the Portland Open last year, and got to kind of get her talk and being a new professional to the sport. And so it's been a nice check-in to kind of go that year mark and then see how's it been being on tour, how her game is developing, and kind of talk about disc golf. I don't want to call Ella an outsider, but it really does feel like a fresh perspective on the Pro Tour and disc golf as a whole, and that perspective that comes from just a different background. And that's something that I really appreciate getting to hear.
Yeah, so we talked to Ella about her game, about how far she's throwing right now, about what tournament she thinks she can win, how she's gotten used to being on the road, the Seattle Mariners, and a whole lot more. So we hope you enjoy another great interview here on the Upshot Interview Series. We'll be joined by Ella Hansen right after this. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. And you know what? They make more than just disc golf bags. Check out their new Fly Pack. You can find it on the website, pounddiscgolf.com. It is the maximum carry-on size travel pack that you've been looking for. Backpack straps, or you can take those off and convert it into a duffel. It's got room for a laptop, a tablet, your clothes, your stuff, and you know what? Some disc golf discs, because obviously you're going to bring some on vacation. $299.99, and it's just a beautiful bag. You got to check it out. It's available in multiple colorways. Go to pounddiscgolf.com to check out the Fly Pack so that you can travel in style. Joining us now on the Upshot Interview Series is Ella Hansen. Ella's coming off of back-to-back podium finishes on the Disc Golf Pro Tour and is currently 7th in the DGPT standings. Ella, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's great to have you back. 7th in the Pro Tour standings is a great place to be sitting at this point in the year. Looking ahead towards, the match play championships, you're in a great spot. Does it surprise you that you are inside the top 10 in the rankings right now, given that you've only been playing disc golf for a couple of years?
Yes, it does. I was talking, I think any of the good things I do kind of surprises me just because, I am still very new to the sport. And especially like this year, there's so many more FPO players on tour too, which is really cool. So the level of competition has increased, and my skill has also, I think, increased and, given me the ability to compete for podiums and get myself high up in those rankings and stuff.
So when you came into the season then, what were your expectations or goals that you were hoping to achieve?
Yeah, one of my main goals is to win a Pro Tour or win an Elite Series event. And I think I felt like I had a pretty good start. I got 6th at Vegas and then didn't play as well as I was hoping in like the Texas swing in the next couple of events. But I'm feeling like I'm getting back on the horse, and I've been on lead card a couple times now and feeling like I'm getting a sense of what I would need to do to win an Elite Series, and just be able to compete with those other players.
It's been an exciting season so far, and obviously a lot of competition. Kristen and the other Europeans coming over and being back on tour, and tons of new names joining the tour. When you kind of evaluate your own game, where do you see that you feel like you still need to make some notable improvements if you want to win an Elite Series event?
Yeah, I think just putting and upshots and like consistency. I think I know that like when I'm feeling good, when I throw a good shot, I can like throw a shot as good as, if not better than, like most of the other players in the field. And then I think when I'm off, I can, play pretty poorly. So just trying to figure out how I can get sort of into my, good zone as much as possible. And then, this is something I thought about like at DDO, just because I had a really tough first round. I wasn't putting well. I wasn't throwing the disc well. And I was still like pushing myself, trying to throw the shots that I wanted to throw. And then like looking back on that, if I had just played a little more conservatively, I would have, during that round, I would have been competing for the win. So I think it's hard to see other players playing well and not try to, push as well. But I think I'm learning my game. I'm learning when I'm feeling on, when I'm feeling like I can, push, throw really good shots, go for birdies, go for eagles, and when I need to kind of just play within myself and take the easy pars and stuff.
So most players, when they begin the sport, have years of trying out different putting stances, different putters, different push putt, spin putt. And you have not been playing nearly as long. And so are you still in what you feel would be an experimentation phase? Or have you decided, I have my putting stroke, I'm just going to practice getting really consistent at that, and I'm not going to tweak or mess with anything, mid-season at all?
Yeah, in terms of putting, I feel like I'm pretty solid with my stroke. What I've noticed is the fewer moving parts you can have in a putt, the more consistent it is. So that's kind of something I'm trying to focus on. But I feel like my putt is pretty smooth. Obviously I miss sometimes, but I think more of that is just a little working on that focus and just making sure that I know what I want my body to do when I putt, and just making sure I can actually do that. And then in terms of driving and stuff, I think form-wise, pretty solid on that for backhands especially. Forehands, a little bit of tweaking going on. And then this off-season, I started using a step putt more than a jump putt, and that's been working super well for me, but it feels more just like an extension of my regular putt where I just fall forward. And it's feeling pretty good.
How is it being on tour? You mentioned before we started here that you've played 8 straight weekends.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of disc golf. That's a lot of weekends of travel and everything else. This is your first year like fully being out on the road. What's it been like?
It's been a lot. It's been good. I'm really enjoying it, but it definitely is, a complete change of pace and everything, and, completely different lifestyle from what I've been used to. And yeah, I've been starting to feel my groove, a little more socially on the road, just finding people I'm hanging out with, and that feels really good to me. And then, yeah, it's just a lot of management, like mentally, physically, trying to get practice rounds in, trying to not hurt myself, trying to not be exhausted. I had a couple days, weeks there, where I was like, my body was pretty sore. But I feel like I did a good job of managing that. And, it's a grind for sure. I just drove like 28 hours in a little more than 2 days. So, getting used to it. I'm definitely excited to have a weekend off and be able to rest, but I'm getting used to it.
Do you travel by yourself, or are you traveling with other people?
I'm traveling by myself. I have a minivan that I've semi built out. It's not like super fancy, but I got a bed and a fridge and stove and all that good stuff.
We've often talked about kind of the back, especially on the Elite Series. So you go Champions Cup, followed by Jonesboro, followed by DDO. There's drive time involved, especially with 4-round tournaments like that. With DDO, you're driving Monday, you show up Tuesday, and tournament starts Thursday. And we've talked a lot about kind of injuries and the health of the players. Do you feel that the Pro Tour has overpacked their schedule with back-to-back weekends like that? And would you like to see more breaks? Do you feel like it's about where it should be? Or would you be open to having more events like the Pro Tour's talked about bringing?
Yeah, I think it's tough, especially as a first-year player on tour. I'm trying to play as many tournaments as I can. I'm trying to get myself those opportunities to be on coverage, to play well, to podium. So even those smaller events that, many of the more established players are skipping, like those A tiers, the Silver Series, those are very tempting for me or hard to say no to. And I think that definitely increases the potential of like potentially getting injured. So definitely requires a lot of maintenance to not do that. I would like to see Elite Series events be at least 2 weeks apart. In the future, I think that with Champions Cup and Jonesboro and DDO, like nobody's I guess people are sort of skipping those events, but like, mid-tier players or like people who aren't as established are not skipping those events. And that can be pretty tiring, especially, like with those 4-round tournaments, it gets exhausting, especially with multiple courses to learn. I think that was one of the big challenges with DDO was like, it felt like some of those tournament rounds were still practice rounds just because it's like you have 3 days to drive, 7 hours and then also practice 2 courses and also not be tired for the tournament, so it's a big ask. I would like to see the Elite Series be at least 2 weekends apart, giving players who choose to not play those smaller events the ability to not have to play back to back to back. But I get why it's like the way it is for sure.
So DDO, the argument against what you're saying is that you just got back-to-back podiums. So it's like, sounds like maybe it's a good fit for you. Does this give you confidence heading towards Worlds that you played well at DDO and, probably feel like you could have played even better if round 1 had gone better?
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I am excited to play Jones again because I feel like there's a lot of things that I left out there that I wanted to push more towards getting more birdies, playing safer. And like I said, it kind of felt like those first couple tournament rounds were almost practice rounds. I think I ended up only playing 1 practice round at Country Club, but I felt like that course is a lot more straightforward than the Jones course. It's kind of just throw it, in the fairway and don't go out of bounds, which, is kind of what Jones is too. But I think there's a lot more placement shots required for the Jones course. But it does give me a lot of confidence thinking about Worlds, knowing that I played well, got a podium, and still feel like I have a lot of potential better rounds, especially at Jones.
Do you feel like Jones and the Country Club are befitting of a world championship?
I have to say, like, my first couple practice rounds out there, I was like pretty underwhelmed. But I think playing the rounds in the tournament made me more enamored by those 2 courses. Personally, I like having those kind of long bomber courses. Definitely fits my game, but I think it's pretty fun. And, one of the cool things at Jones, like having a player like Christine Jennings, who does not necessarily have that elite distance, but she's super consistent, like, showing that she can make that lead card and shoot the hot round of the day. I think it proves that those kind of courses don't just benefit players that can throw it really far. So I personally like having the wooded course and the open course for Worlds. And I guess I'm saying that I've only played one Worlds, but to me, it feels like a better test of, overall being the best player in the world. And I feel like Jones and Country Club, like, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two courses. Like, there is difference, but it's not, obviously as significant as an open versus a wooded course. I think if either of those courses were the open course for a World Championships, I would be happy with that. But I think they're a little too similar to me. Yeah.
Got it. So, we've talked a lot about the wind this weekend. It was a notable factor. And we talked some on the show about how your background and Brody Smith's background in Ultimate may have been a benefit in dealing with the wind because of the nature of having to learn how to throw discs in the wind in a real way when you play Ultimate. So do you buy that? Do you feel like that was beneficial for you, or is it just too different to really have an impact?
I definitely think, it has helped me. I feel like the way you kind of approach the wind for disc golf versus for Ultimate, I mean, disc golf, obviously you can change what disc you're throwing, and Ultimate, you kind of just have to change angle, just have to change like power. And so I think that there's a lot of, I feel like most of what benefited me shooting well in the wind was power and nose angle. I think a lot of players who are trying to throw max distance on those courses are throwing flex shots. And obviously, if you have a right to left wind, if you put the edge of the disc up in either direction, it's going to sail it really far left or right. So a lot of my approach was just, I'm going to throw a stable disc. I'm going to throw it on a line drive, low and flat, and like try my best to not let the edge of the disc get exposed to the wind as much as I can. And I feel like that worked really well for me. Yeah.
Do you feel that the wind reached levels that should have resulted in maybe a postponement of the tournament?
No.
No.
I think a lot of people maybe thought that. I don't know if we actually played in the peak wind. I feel like the first, well, I don't actually know. Some people told me that it was windier for the MPO rounds, and some people told me it was the same as the FPO round. So I don't know. I wasn't outside during that MPO round 3. So I don't have a good read on that. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think there are a lot of ways that you can manage your game in the wind. And yes, you're going to have weird kicks. You're going to have bad luck. Like, part of that is a good mental test. Like, you have to deal with that. You can't, I think a lot of disc golfers approach disc golf as like, I'm going to do this, and if I don't do this, it's unsuccessful, or I'm going to birdie this hole, and if I don't birdie it, it's a bad hole for me. So I think that it forces players to both change the way that they physically approach the game and mentally approach the game, and I think that is a really good challenge.
So over these last 2 events, you made $3,500 in payout, which exceeded what you'd earned before that to this point in the season. How much of an impact does that have for you? Like, is that like, oh, wow, like I'm going to go out to eat tonight kind of a deal?
A little bit. I definitely, podiuming makes me, it's a thing to celebrate. So I definitely had a nice, dinner after both of those podiums. But I don't know. I feel like I kind of was expecting something like that. So it's not, and I feel like I missed cash a couple times earlier this season, but I feel like I've been doing a pretty good job of cashing. So I try to not let it, make me want to spend a bunch of money. And I just, kind of trying to just treat it as income and keep going with my life.
Do you have bonuses in your contract for appearing on coverage or podiums at Elite Series events?
I have bonuses for podiums, but not for coverage.
How does, and you don't need exact numbers, but I mean, how does that podium bonus compare to the cash you earned from the tournament?
It definitely adds a little bit to it. It's not chump change. It helps me out. It gives me a little bit of a boost. It's a nice little addition.
Good.
So, you have an active Twitter account. You tweeted, I don't remember what tournament it was now. You tweeted something about being in the gallery and having somebody in the galleries saying some nonsense, and you responded to this on Twitter, and it kind of blew up and like became like a thing, and people were really upset. Like what do you take away from that? Like, do you feel like you were wrong to tweet what you did? Do you feel like you were gatekeeping? I saw a lot of different takes on this topic.
Yeah, that was a lot. Well, from my perspective, I was just like kind of annoyed at this thing and made a tweet about it. And I think I was like a little bit rash characterizing like, people who are in the gallery. And I think that was wrong of me. But I feel like the take that I'm annoyed by this thing that people in the gallery do is like, I should be able to find something annoying, Yeah, that definitely blew up. I was, a little bit frustrated by how some of the people on the internet treated it. And which, you can pretty much expect from anything you post on the internet. So, I mean, I think it's hard to have opinions on the internet, especially with disc golf, and people are very picky about how they're characterized, or, just wanting to be able to do what they want. And I think that, people felt like it was gatekeepy. I did not feel like it was gatekeepy at all. I mean, I explicitly said, like, people are more than welcome. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to, like, yell things in the gallery. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to do that, or there should be a law against it or anything, just that I found it annoying. So, I think I'm entitled to have my opinion. I understand why it, kind of went over poorly with some people. But, I think in general, like, I would prefer to have an open conversation with anyone who's going to use my tweet as fodder for their podcast or whatever, instead of it being used as fodder for their podcast and people talking crap about me. So, that's kind of where I'm at.
This weekend, and this kind of is a little bit on the spectator side, we saw a couple instances where players were asking spectators to back up off the ropes a little bit because of the hyzer line they wanted to throw. We had some emails from Champions Cup about the management of spectators. As a player, do you feel like the spectator side of things is handled well, or do you feel like there needs to be increased management in order to decrease the interference with the actual golf itself?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think that it's going to be a growing pain of a growing sport. And I feel like the Pro Tour is like and the PDGA are doing their best to manage it. But I think it's kind of like, you have the increase in spectators and you got to catch up with the increase in, management and stuff just like that. I have definitely seen spectators interfering, maybe not on purpose, but I've seen people not get out of the way of disc that they saw coming in and get hit with it, or it hit their bag and it stay in bounds, or it stay out of bounds, or things like that. I think that in general, having the spectator line be directly on the OB line is maybe not the best practice. And obviously there are some situations where you can't change that. But yeah, I think that having the spectator lines be a little further off the OB will be helpful. And yeah, I think just, the management is going to catch up with the spectators. I think that, I really love having spectators out there. I love having a gallery. It's super fun to play in front of. But I think just making sure that it doesn't interfere with the actual play as much as possible is definitely a good thing to focus on.
What's your favorite tournament so far this year?
I think Jonesboro. I think.
Go ahead.
I really like the course. I think it was nice. It was well curated golf. I think that it was an open course, but it wasn't just like on a golf course where they're like, okay, we're going to add all this artificial OB so that we can like make fairways or whatever. The rough was rough. The fairways were fair. You had to hit your lines, and you could get punished if you got off the fairway, but it wasn't super tight. And I also really enjoyed playing Champions Cup. I thought that course was really sick. But for my style of disc golf, I really, really enjoyed playing at Jonesboro, and I thought it was a really well-maintained course and a really well-run event.
You said that your goal was to win an Elite Series event this year. Which event on the rest of the season's docket do you feel like gives you the best chance to do that?
I think OTB Open and Portland Open both are kind of, like I was just talking about. They have that more open style courses. The OTB Open course and the Glendevere courses are both for Portland Open are both being basically almost fully redesigned. So it kind of, I played both those events last year, but I like having these kind of new courses where everyone has the same, amount to practice the course. You don't have advantages of people who've played, 10 tournaments there or whatever. So I'm looking forward to those events, and I feel like they give me a good opportunity to podium. And then I think a couple of the events I'm looking forward to later in this season, the Preserve, the Des Moines Challenge, and Maple Hill. I feel like those kind of courses also play well to my game.
We're in the stretch of the long bomber courses right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you've been in a tournament yet where you really could win? Like final day, back nine, like I could win? Or has that not happened yet in your mind?
Not yet. I think if you're looking at like last round, no. At Jonesboro, I think I was maybe 4 strokes off the lead after round 1. But Jonesboro was actually the first tournament I had where I was on a lead card after the first day. So that's something that I'm like been working on mentally and just figuring out how I can shoot hot rounds the first day, because I'm looking at my finishes. I've done a really good job of playing well day 2, day 3, day 4. And sometimes I'm not as good on the first round. So that's kind of something I've been focusing on, just trying to make sure I'm in contention that first round, so that I can be in contention later and not just shooting a hot round, but only moving up to like 3rd place or whatever.
Do you think that first round performance is based slightly in your inexperience on these courses, that, some players have played a lot and you are still kind of working in, you just arrived 2 days ago, you haven't had as many practice rounds? Like you said, some of the rounds this weekend felt like practice rounds to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I've been trying to figure out, I think a lot of people take the day before the tournament starts off or just putt or whatever and kind of give themselves a rest day. And I've been playing around with that, or taking, the day after the tournament off, and just trying to figure out how I can really get in my groove. I think that knowing the course definitely helps, but I think At Jonesboro, I didn't really know the course, and I was able to just like feel really good about my game. And yeah, I think it's like partially knowing the course and partially just feeling good.
Which players have impressed you this season?
Kristen Tatar. I mean, I like to watch her game. I think she has the most well-rounded game of any of the FPO players. She throws a lot of sidearms, and she throws a lot of backhands. But I like watching her game, how controlled she is. That's been fun for me to see, just in terms of when she chooses to lay up, when she chooses to run a putt. I like playing with Paige. I think, she's a very crafty player. I think that, I know that's a weird thing to say, but I think she does a good job of not just like using her power, but she does a good job of throwing shots that make the holes work for her, even if it's like a left to right shot that she's not going to throw a sidearm, but she can make it work for her. I mean, there's a ton of other players who I'm impressed by that I can't think of right now, but those are the two that I've enjoyed playing with.
I have to ask, do you think you're going to get to the point where you can throw further than Paige?
I think I might be there.
You think you're already there?
Yeah, we played together. We played together at or the last round at Country Club at DDO, and I definitely outdrove her a good couple times.
How far is that drive exactly?
I think, I don't know, I haven't really measured recently, but I feel like I'm hitting like 425 pretty consistently, maybe pushing 450 on a nice little downhill.
That's so cool. So while you're talking about other FPO players, this is a question that I've kind of wanted to ask. If you had, based on your competitors, who do you think would make the best ultimate players if they were to cross back over the other way?
That's a good question. I think Paige would be a good one. She like I said, she would be kind of crafty and scrappy,
right?
I feel like she's like, she wouldn't shy away from contact too. I know Ultimate's a non-contact sport, but we all know that there's contact in Ultimate. I think Holland Hanley would be good. She played D1, or she played volleyball in college. She's very athletic, and also she does like powerlifting and stuff. So she would be good. Man, who else? Who's tall? I think, well, Stacy Ronsley, she also played Ultimate before, so
okay.
she would be good. But yeah, I think you could put together a pretty fun team.
I think next year for the All-Stars match, they should do an Ultimate game and give points out on the All-Stars. I would watch that. That'd be so much fun to watch.
Yeah. Who was
I want to commentate that. Just crush people for their terrible play.
That would be awesome. Jay Redding Yeti was telling me about this game called, I think, disc lacrosse, where it's like lacrosse, but instead of a lacrosse goal, you have a basket. And I don't play lacrosse, so I don't know what the rules are, but I thought that would be kind of a fun thing to try out.
So it's lacrosse with the ball and the sticks and everything, but then you have to get it into
with a disc.
Basket?
It's a disc.
It's a disc.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can run with it or if you have to set a pivot or whatever, but then you're just trying to make it in the basket.
Interesting.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I thought that would be fun. And I feel like that would be a good way to good thing to do with the other disc golfers on tour.
There you go.
Multi-sport disc event. It's time to bring it back.
Yeah.
So you said you're in the Bay right now. I think before we started airing this. So a little time off. Are you planning to hit all of these West Coast stops? So including the Silver Series, Masters, Beaver State.
Yep. That's the plan. And I'm playing an A-tier up in Seattle as well. So I got this week off, and then it'll be another 5 weeks in a row. So getting ready for it.
And are you going to be playing at the European Open?
I won't be. I would like to be able to go, but just financially, it's like a lot of money to travel over there. And I'm kind of focusing, I guess, on the US tour this year, and then hoping that, next year I might be in a financial position to go play those events, because I really would love to. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense for me this year.
Time to put the screws to Discmania. Be like, hey, Al, what are we doing here? Got it. Okay. So what have you learned this year being on tour? I'll leave it open-ended.
I think that one of the things I've learned is that it's fun to play practice rounds with other people, with new people, and to learn from them. And I think that a lot of playing well requires just like getting in your zone, and trying to figure out how to get in the zone. Because I think a lot of, you look at all the players on tour, like everyone has the skills to win. But you see the players that consistently win, they're in the zone. They're just playing well, playing consistently. And when you're not in the zone, it's kind of a little bit of damage control. I mean, we saw like Kristen and Kat's battle this past weekend. Like Kristen was and she said herself, like she was feeling a little bit off. She had switched putters and then was feeling not consistent with them. And, you just kind of got to buckle down at some point and play to the best of your ability with what your ability is at that time. So just kind of trying to find that balance and that fine line of where, when like you're not playing well and you should lay this putt up, or versus when you're like, okay, I'm going to smash this from circle 2. I'm just going to go for it. I think just trying to find that line. And I think that I've been learning about that line. I've been like sort of figuring it out, and just trying to get more and more comfortable with it and with my own game, and just knowing the limits of my game at any given round.
I'm trying to recall, I feel like I've seen you with a caddy for a fair amount of your rounds. Is that correct, or do you usually carry your own bag?
It depends. I've had a caddy sometimes. I don't mind carrying my own bag, but if a friend wants to caddy for me, usually I'm down. I've noticed that, like, as a person, it's nice to have a caddy who can kind of help technically with shots, but I think also just having a friend hanging out with me, keeping me loose, helping me be in that zone, that definitely helps out. And, a lot of times, like, the people on my cart are fun and my friends, and, that kind of serves that purpose. But sometimes it's nice to just have that aspect, and just, have fun out there.
Perfect. That answered my follow-up question with it. So,
all right, I have a question that I know you're not going to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have any enemies on tour? Like, are there villains?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't think I do. I hope I don't.
That must mean you're the villain.
Yeah. Yes.
Email us, upshot@alltooworld.com. Let us know.
Tell me if I'm the villain. I think that, part of being on tour is, like, there are people who probably have different ideals than you, and, like, don't necessarily align with how you play disc golf or how you live your life or whatever. And, like, I think one of the cool things is, like, I am meeting these people that, like, maybe I have, like, saw on social media or saw them play or whatever, and I'm just like, I don't know about you, but most of the time they're, like, nice people, and, like, I think that's a cool thing to just, disc golf, I feel like, does bring together a lot of people from different walks of life. And, I think that whether I agree with them or not, just being able to have a conversation with them, chatting about stuff, knowing that they're a human and they know I'm human too. I feel like that's pretty sweet. And yeah, I don't think I have any enemies, but you know, who knows? Who knows?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lesson in there for everyone about how we communicate with one another on all topics, and it's a lot easier to see people as human if you actually have a conversation with them.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know you're a big Seattle Mariners fan.
Yes.
They're 12-12. How are you feeling about the season so far for the Mariners?
I was feeling good at the beginning. I mean, this is the plight of a Mariners fan all the time. You think they're going to be good, and then they kind of suck, and then you think they're going to be good again, and then they suck. So I think that all the tools are there this year, actually there to make the playoffs, to make a run, but they're the Mariners, so what can you expect but too much hope and then sadness. But I think that if we're going into the nitty-gritty, Matt Brash, he got to get his control together. Chris Flexen, crushing it. We've had a lot of quality starts. We just got to start, getting some offense going, and the umpires need to stop calling bad third strikes on Julio Rodriguez.
That is the nitty gritty.
Can I just say
the Angels are going to choke? So somehow they're going to not make the playoffs again.
that hurts, Charlie. I just have to say, I watched, so in the season opener when the Astros and Angels were playing, and they booed, I don't remember who it was, for trying to bunt on Shohei Ohtani's perfect game. Yeah. And I'm like, Astro fans will forgive blatant cheating, but you break one of the unwritten rules, and it's absolutely not. Baseball's the funniest sport in the world to me, and I love it.
Our Houston listeners are seething right now.
Yeah,
they are.
It is. I feel like I've been watching a lot of baseball this year, and I feel like I've been taking some of the lessons away into my disc golf game. I think mentally, it's an interesting comparison, or just, I don't know what pitcher I was listening to, but I was listening to an interview with some pitcher, and he was saying every throw, every movement in warm-ups, can inform how you're going to play that day, or what you need to work on, what you need to warm up. And I was thinking about that in my warm-ups, just I think I was kind of in a place where I was like, okay, I'm just going to go throw some discs and see how they fly. But I think, stuff like that definitely helps me think about how I'm warming up, how I'm being intentional about my game, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. What are there unwritten rules of disc golf on the tour?
Man, I mean, yes, probably. I think there are. I'm just blanking a little bit. I mean,
Ella breaks them all, hence why she's the villain.
I think that, there's some players who, are kind of picky about certain things, or there's some players who, don't want you to tap in your disc if they're a little, further away than you for the tap in first. And most players don't care, but I think that, I don't know. I think I wouldn't say that there are unwritten rules, but I feel like there are some kind of rules that don't really get used as much, or just, I've never called a football in my life, and I've seen a lot. And I think that coming from an Ultimate player, that's pretty frustrating, because in Ultimate, you call everything you see pretty much. And it's accepted, and the players talk about it and make a decision. So that is something I would like to see be more callable, but it's not really an approachable thing at this point, which is frustrating.
What's the solution to that, or calling time violation? I mean, we've had some pretty obvious instances of these things coming up this season.
Yeah. I think it's hard because it is it kind of is an unwritten rule, not necessarily that you don't call it, but just I know that if I do call it on some players, they're going to get pissed at me, or they're going to maybe try to have like retribution or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's actually true, but like that's my fear. And I think that's most people's fear, because it does feel so personal to make a call like that in this sport, like that's individual like this. I think having marshals, we were actually talking about this on my card at DDO, because Jeff Jacqua was walking with our card as our marshal, and we were talking about how having a marshal on every hole would probably be better than having a marshal for each card. Just that way they'll call calls consistently for each hole, and you wouldn't necessarily have a marshal making a different call for the same hole but a different group. But I think disc golf is still pretty far away from that, and I feel like realistically it's just gonna be a problem for a little while longer until marshals are there on most of the cards and actually making calls consistently. So yeah, I don't have a solution for that one.
Imagine getting assigned Angel Hernandez as your rules marshal for a round.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
That's a deep cut for our baseball people. It was obviously in. Okay.
Yeah. I think one thing that like I've noticed has been a problem in the past couple tournaments is just not having spotters on blind holes. I had a player who I played with who we lost a disc on hole 18 at Jonesboro, and there was no spotter to tell us where the disc went. And so just had to re-tee, and just some blind holes where there's OB and you get up there and you see where the disc end up, but you don't know if it crossed inbounds at a certain point, because you didn't see the whole flight. So I think that is something that will help keep the game being played as correctly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a kind of an obvious oversight.
I think
like, tournaments have to solve that problem if they're going to design a hole like that.
Yeah, I think I understand, like, on the weekends it's hard to find or on the weekdays, excuse me, it's hard to find volunteers, especially come out at 7 a.m. and be a spotter. But I think they just need to make the priority being those blind holes first, and then move to holes that don't have OB or have more obvious OB that the card can actually make a call on. Because, yeah, like, sometimes maybe it did cross in bounds, but everyone is just like, well, we saw it go this way, and, like, I don't know if it crossed in bounds, so, like, we're going to give it to you where we last saw it in bounds, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for the time you've given us here. I guess last question here, unless Josh has something else. As you look ahead to the rest of the season, and you already mentioned the kind of the tournaments that you feel like you have the best shot at winning. Which tournament do you want to win the most? Is it the obvious World Championships answer, or do you have something else that you'd prefer?
That's a good question. I think probably Portland Open would be pretty sick. Just because I know that I can shoot hot rounds at those kind of courses. And I want to be able to do that consistently. And then I think like Green Mountain Championship or Maple Hill, I think both of those courses are really fair tests, or both of those events are really fair tests of disc golfers. And so I feel like that would be a really, really solid one both of those would be pretty sick.
Sweet. Well, enjoy your time out in the Bay and on the West Coast swing, and we'll see you out there.
Sweet. Thank you all for having me on.
Ella Hansen with us here on the Upshot Interview Series. We'll be back next week.